Music has always been one of the best parts of my life. Growing up, I was played a lot of the classics. Sinatra, Dean Martin, Nat King Cole. A lot of 2000s easy listening as well. On the radio, it was all recession pop. Bieber, Gaga, Katy Perry. I went through a 50s phase as a tween, listened to Elvis and Ricky Nelson on my record player, and daydreamed of soda parlors and sock hops. In middle school, I fell into my 80s phase and devoured classic rock and kitschy synth pop. 90s music was largely introduced to me by my friends towards the end of high school and throughout college. I constantly returned to the psychedelic rock and folk ballads of the 60s and 70s, and I'm always discovering contemporary artists to fawn over. I've fallen in love with every decade of music. I've listened to every genre. There are so many artists I love, plenty that I respect, a few that I'd take a bullet for, and a decent music collection to show for it. Several popular artists that I loved as a kid I still adore now, their music in constant circulation, but few of them come close to rivaling my love for a certain defunct boy band. And at times, I find myself wondering why. What is it about One Direction that consumes me again and again? Why have I listened to their music almost ceremoniously for the past 15 years of my life? I think often of a memory from over a decade ago. I must be 9 years old, iPod Touch in hand, and I'm blasting Half a Heart on iTunes in my father's large sunlit bedroom, most likely alone in the house, singing along with all of the heartache and pain a 9-year-old can possibly muster. It's my favorite of their songs at the time. I find the imagery fascinating. I'm endeared to their suffering. Only half a blue sky, kind of there but not quite. As a kid who idolized Adele, I was fond of heartache, of a ballad of lost love and yearning. I was fond of music that made sense of some unspoken hurt I couldn't place. I craved songs that made me feel. I still do, to be fair. Of course, I sang along to their bubblegum hits on the radio as well, and watched their music videos religiously with my older sister on her bedroom floor. But it's this moment that sticks out to me, because it's the beginning of my true love for the band. A child finding catharsis in an album deep cut, a track from the extended edition, and the most agonizing track at that. There was a real appreciation there, not a blind puppy love for the boys with curly hair on the cover of a magazine, and that stayed with me through the next decade and longer. As I've endeavored to learn from my friends what it is about music that speaks to them, I've realized how varied the appreciative lens can be, and in doing so, I've had more interest in analyzing my own artistic appreciation of things. I've dissected why it is that certain music makes me tick, and it's becoming so clear to me that I view music through several different appreciative lenses. Sometimes it's beautiful lyricism, sometimes it's a fascinating vocal, sometimes it's impressive or unique instrumentation, sometimes a song just has an atmospheric quality that draws me in. And sometimes music, regardless of those qualities, has an unexplained hold on me. Something that comes from a history with the songs, a shared joy. It's the principle of the thing. You come to the music with a certain energy, and the music returns that energy tenfold. I curated a playlist a few months ago, in which I attempted to collect my favorite songs of all time, those intrinsic tunes, the ones that make up my being, perhaps molecularly. And funnily enough, there's a singular One Direction song on that list of over 80, but still, I would argue they're my favorite band. Their individual songs don't necessarily have to surpass all other musical depth for me to feel a fondness for them, unlike that I feel for any other musician. Their musical legacy is enough, their impact is enough. I couldn't count the number of times in high school when I, depressed out of my mind, would curl up on my bedroom floor, numb to the world, unable to even cry, and in order to feel something, in order to move, I would blast One Direction. The music, the memories, they would flood my nervous system, give me something to hold on to until my mind could grasp some sense of contentment. I would dance along and fondly remember the days when listening to Rock Me made me feel hardcore, before that middle school classic rock phase, before I knew what any of the innuendos meant. I would laugh and sing, and sometimes when I got lucky, I would cry, because something about their music made me feel. It made me human. I think of myself, end of my senior year, listening to Harry's House on CD the day it was released. When Matilda played, I sobbed, because somehow the stranger had written a song that spoke to me in a way it shouldn't have been able to. I listened as a familiar, soft voice reminded me that it was okay to move on and grow up, that I deserved to find peace and joy. It came at the perfect time, from someone who had been a warm presence in my life for over a decade. Moments like that stick with you. Every once in a while, a sad sort of doubt fills my heart, the sort of doubt you only get when you live in the patriarchal world that we do. It forces me to question my own dedication and joy, because why should a 22-year-old woman love a boy band so much that she cries upon hearing her favorite of their albums on vinyl for the first time? Why should she love the music so much that she's willing to spend her money to see each member of the band live when she hardly has any money to spend? Why should it matter to her so much? How uncool. But then I think of it for a moment longer, and the only conclusion I can come to is that, actually, it's punk as fuck to be this passionate. It's a direct obstruction to the system for women to find community and joy and something that's rid of any suffocating male presence. Besides, whatever the forces of the world would have me think, this has never been an interest that truly diminished my value in the eyes of those who matter. I think of my high school friends, who I would force to watch 1D music videos during hangouts as a sort of self-satisfying torment, and whether or not they enjoyed it, I'd like to think this habit endeared them. In any case, I've never bothered to hide my passions, and I've managed to develop friendships with a lot of very cool people, some of which the silly boy band was a factor in. Besides, a defunct band with a thriving fanbase even 10 years out is the kind of commitment that usually leads to a lasting legacy. In 10 to 20 years, when the music snobs of the world are finally able to let go of their biases and look back on the impact of this band culturally, socially, and musically, I imagine my endearment will appear a lot less silly. Which brings up another thing. Shouldn't the fact that I still regularly listen to this band's music, despite being a grown adult with an arguably eclectic music taste, say something about their value as musicians? Sure, nostalgia plays a part, as it does in so many things, but having One Direction on my Spotify Wrapped every single year, despite listening to their albums more often on CD, is not solely the product of some childish obsession with the cute British boys on the posters lining my walls. It comes out of a true appreciation for their work. As a band and as solo artists, the members of One Direction have proven their talent and worth as musicians over and over again. They've written beautiful songs, performed ridiculous venues, sold out shows, had countless number ones, and touched millions of hearts, cliché as it sounds. Their musical legacy is important to me, and its impact on me is something I could never thank them enough for. This is not blind adoration or idol worship. I love these guys for the art they've created, for the culture they've cultivated, for the warmth they've lent me when I needed it most, and I have no problem having objective discussions about their work. I will insist that Watermelon Sugar or Perfect Now are skips in the same breath that I praise Four with fervor, or admit that a song as objectively bad as Na 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 still brings me joy. I have no problem being critical of their work. I respect them enough as artists to do so, but I will defend their artistic integrity until my dying breath because, again, every single member of that band is immensely talented in their own right. At risk of swerving a bit off topic, I'd like to put forward a comment I saw once on a video about one of my favorite shows, Sex and the City. It read, "Every time Gen Z on the internet complains about how cringe Carrie is, I want to ask them, when was the last time they did anything interesting without thinking about how it was going to be perceived by others?" And although Carrie Bradshaw has her objective issues, this element of her character, her commitment to the bit, to doing whatever silly or chaotic thing makes her laugh, is something I admire. She is herself. She's messy, but she's undeniably chic and infectious. I think this point translates beautifully to the internal struggle that comes with a passion for a band like One Direction, who have been so unfairly overlooked critically. The only thing that occasionally makes me reconsider my love for them is the perception of others. Will I be taken less seriously? Does being a fangirl take me out of any legitimate conversations on music? Do I lose a little bit of my mystique? Thankfully, I'm mostly free of the social media panopticon that so many of my fellow Gen Zers live in, but that doesn't keep me from overanalyzing my own image. Because I want to be the cool girl. Who doesn't? But what is so uncool about being infectious? I think of the atmosphere at a One Direction dance party I recently went to. It's an atmosphere I've discovered is incredibly common at any event related to this band or its solo members. It's an atmosphere of kinship, of familiarity. There's a rejection of outside social pressure because you know that everyone in the room loves this music the same way you do. People will come up to you and compliment your outfit, praise any niche reference you might be sporting, ask to take pictures of the merch you've brought along, dance fervently with you despite not even knowing your name. It's the perfect atmosphere for making friends, for being yourself, for getting utterly and entirely lost in the music. At that party, I sat for a moment after hours of non-stop dancing and watched as a group of strangers formed a conga line to Golden. I remember grinning to myself, 3 tequilas in, bassline rippling through my bones, and realizing that this was the happiest I'd been in months. Something so simple yet so delicately aligned, a group of grown adults united by a love for the same music, so free within a space. In many ways, the atmosphere at my silly, girly boy band dance party hardly felt any different to the sort of expressive freedom I saw at the tiny punk show I attended later that weekend. Lost in the music, a shared appreciation from everyone around you. The more you lean in, the more fun you have. It's musical bliss. And so, I'd like to make the formal argument that One Direction is cool, actually. That the cult following it's amassed is something to be reckoned with. that fans of this band are passionate, hilarious, beautiful, and vivacious. And sure, some are a little insane. Sometimes in a fun way, sometimes not so much. But in every group there are bad apples. And this one is so overwhelmingly fun. This band's so incredibly significant. I think we should start treating it as such. Wear your 1D tees like they're a classic rock band. Style them like the badass that you are. Start asking men to name 5 songs if they ever comment on it. Be pretentious about them. They deserve it. But mostly, enjoy it. Enjoy the music, because there is nothing cooler than being true to your passions. We've got to start giving ourselves more credit for the lengths we go to appreciate their discography, for being able to identify who's singing each verse, for knowing who is involved in writing most of their songs, for having such dedication to these artists that the band sits in the top 100 on Spotify 10 years after their separation. For making a point of their significance, for proving that a band marketed towards young women does not have to lose its magnitude the moment its projected shelf life is up. Because One Direction became something so much more than a commercialized boy band. It became an unprecedented musical force. For many of us, our appreciation extends to their influences as well. I've always loved the vaguely Fleetwood Mac groove on Fireproof and What a Feeling. After becoming increasingly fond of British alt-rock in recent years, I have a much greater appreciation for its influence on Louis' work. I devoured the funk and blues sounds that made their way onto Room Under the Stairs. I feel synergy with Niall every time he mentions his love for the Eagles, and I always admire Harry's nods to one of my favorite musical groups of all time, Simon and Garfunkel. Between all of their work, there's a broader musical landscape that speaks to their cultural impact and reach, and I can't help but marvel at it. Sometimes I question how the death of somebody I'd never even met could possibly affect me the way that Liam's did. But it's no question, really. Louis, Liam, Niall, Harry, and Zayn have been a part of my life for longer than some of my best friends in the whole world. They've been there for me through every devastation, every heartbreak, every delight. Their music has been encouragement, inspiration, catharsis, and more. I have this band to thank for so many wonderful memories. The time I dragged my best friend along to see Niall, and after the show, we got stuck in the venue parking lot for over an hour, so we sat on the roof of my car blasting 1D while we waited for the traffic to clear. Camping out at Louis Tomlinson's music festival with someone I'd never met in person before, dancing my heart out for 2 days straight, discovering one of my new favorite bands, and coming away from it with a hoarse voice and a cold but a full heart. The time I saw Zayn alone in January of 2025, still heartbroken by Liam's passing and beaten down by life, desperate for community and the healing power of Zayn Malik's angelic voice, and when I had issues with my ticket, a few girls in line happily helped me out and invited me to stand and watch the show with them. It was everything I needed at that moment. It was live music and camaraderie. It was magic. I never got to see the band when they were still together, but it's moments like these when I think I'm getting the slightest glimpse into what it might have felt like, and I wouldn't trade that joy for anything. It's a priceless commodity. It's sincerity in a world so desperately lacking in it. So I can't wait for the year ahead. For more new music, for going absolutely insane in the Louis pit, for the creative concert outfits and new friends made in the queues. I can't wait to celebrate my favorite band this year more than ever before, and I can't wait to be unwaveringly cool in doing so.